Hello everyone. In this lab, I'm going to show you a couple different tools. I'm going to show you how to combine, bevel, merge, and I'm going to show you the multi-cut tool again. Um, so I'm going to show you primarily on this one. There's just more to merge and combine, and I'll do it on this one as well. But I'm going to start with this one. This is the one that I used primarily using the attribute editor and adjusting all of my model. So I'm going to go ahead and hide my box modeling sword that I created. And I'm going to bring that over to the center, so I've got it here. So what am I talking about? I mentioned making things like watertight or airtight or whatever when you're modeling, right? And the premise of that, if you think of it as like a 3D printed model, is it going to print as one piece, or is it going to print as four pieces and sink to the bottom if you were to drop it in a tub of water, right? Or if there's going to be a hole in it because we didn't merge it all properly. So in this case, just think of it as this would all be sunken at the bottom. But I'm going to show you a little bit more in depth here. So we've already set it up like this. And if you haven't, you need to just use your multi-cut tool, which is, which I already covered, multi-cut tool, and also in your modeling toolkit right over here. Probably the fastest, easiest ways to show you how to get to it. But if you did it the long way, you go to mesh tools and do multi-cut tool. All right. Anyway, so we should have our geometry pretty much already set up and ready for this. Now, a couple things I'm going to show you. One tool or mode or whatever you want to call it that I really, really love is Shift-I for isolate. And you'll notice that I'm in my isolate mode. The only thing I see is my sphere, right? Although I do already know that I have the other parts of it because they're still in my outliner, right? Excuse me. Now if I deselect off of everything and I press Shift-I again, everything reappears. So I really, really like this tool. Clicking one object, holding Shift and I, right? This way I can, if it's confusing for you, just shift this over and you can look on your channel box here. We're going to shift on the translate X and just shift it over to 1.8. It's another easy way to do it. And we're going to delete the cap on this. So if I hold right click, go to face, and I select all these faces one at a time. And if I was in my orthographic view or rotated, I could just do it this way, but you always want to make sure you selected them all. And I'm going to delete those. Okay. And now I've got it hollowed. And that's what I mean if you were to drop it in water, and I'm going to get a little bit further into it. I can also now bring this back. Translate X I know is 0, so I can snap that right back. And I've already got everything sort of lined up for it right here. I can do the same thing here. I'm going to use the Shift-I technique, but if you're more comfortable dragging it off and then just bringing it back to 0, feel free to do it that way also. So I'm going to Shift-I, click off my model, and I'm going to delete the caps. Now, I believe I already showed you my quick way. Hold Shift, so do a click and drag, hold Shift to select, then deselect. I'm going to delete that cap. You'll see I only have that one selected, and I'm going to delete that cap. Those are called caps. Now, Shift-I, and now I'm ready for at least to combine these two. Now I'm going to show you a couple different ways. The first thing I'm going to show you is the long way, but it's a very easy way. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this all one object. Now, if you did the box modeling technique, you already did this technically because you just merged it out. But this is really, really, really important to know how to do. extremely important to know how to do. So the first thing I want to do on this is I can't merge any vertices or edges or anything if I can't, if they're two separate objects, because it doesn't know to merge. It won't be able to merge this object to this object, or at least even vertices on it, unless they're one object. And now, even though they're disconnected and we created them as separate objects, this was a cylinder, this was a sphere, what we are going to do now is we're going to combine these to make Maya think it's one object, because it's gonna be. And I'm going to select one and shift select the other one, or you could just click and drag and select both. I like, when I'm doing something like this, if I have other objects in my scene and blah, 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 I want to make sure I'm not selecting anything else. I like to just click one, hold shift, and click the other. And you can always see what you have selected in your outliner. Now, easiest way to do this is to go to combine right here. Hover over it. That's your combine tool. You also have it in your modeling toolkit. And that is combine right here. And then is it under mesh tools? Edit mesh. Mesh. It's under mesh combine as well, so you can do it that way too. So there's 3 ways to access that tool. And now they're combined, and when you combine them, it's going to take the name of whatever you selected first. So in this case I selected the handle, and I'm fine leaving it named as sword handle mesh, and it adds a 1 to the end of it, because now it's just how it does it. Whenever it renames something, it always adds a 1 or a 2 or a 3, as you saw with P cube 1, P cube 2, P cube 3, or sphere 1, sphere 2, etc., etc. So that being said, the long way, but yet very efficient way, is to hold right click on your object, go to vertex, select 1 and 1, because we're going to combine and merge these. So in order to merge these, easiest way, hold shift and right click, and we're going to go to merge vertices and merge vertices. Okay. If it doesn't work for you for some reason, hold shift, hold right click, merge vertices to center. So the merge vertices itself here, if I highlight over this little box, it's going to come up with some settings, and this is called a threshold. And that threshold actually calculates a distance of a radius around each vert. So if it's in that threshold, it'll know to merge to that. Now if the threshold is too large and you had more than one vert selected, it may merge vertices that you didn't originally want to merge. In 3ds Max, this is the same exact thing as welding. They call this welding in 3ds Max. I believe it's called welding. It's been a while since I used Max, but I believe it's still called welding. And so if I do just click these two, hold shift, right click, and go merge vertices and merge to center, it doesn't have a threshold. It just calculates the distance between the two, and it merges them directly halfway between the two. So those are 2 ways to do this. Now, if I did it that way, hold shift, hold right click, merge vertices, and merge to center, and I'm going to tap G for my last tool used, I can go around and do it this way. Or, and this is a way I want you to be very careful of, but it can be much faster. This is a perfect example to use this technique on. If I highlight all of these and I hold right click and merge vertices and merge vertices, my threshold isn't large enough. And my are basically already knows it's not, because it knows that it hasn't merged any of them, because the threshold is too small. So let's try 0.1. And that seemed to work. Now that's and you want to double check this. Now the fastest way to double check to make sure that these all merged is tap 3 on your keyboard for that preview smooth mode, and you'll see that it is merged really well, right? You'll see it all combines into one smooth, fluid model. Now, let's go back. If it's now, it's still in smooth mode, but you'll notice that none of them are connected. But let me show you what it looks like if I were to have this done this way, and you'll see that it's starting to sort of smooth out. And realistically, I'm going to show you another way. They always point to where it needs to be merged. You'll see it here. Let me show you. If you have an error and I'm in smooth mode, they always tend to point to the direction at which it needs to be fixed. So that's always a good telltale sign. So I showed you a couple different ways to do it. And I'm going to undo all that one more time. And I'm going to show you the fast way again. We're going to go into 1. We're going to hold right click with our object selected and go to vertex. I like to grab these from the orthographic view because I know it's perfectly two-dimensionally all lined up and things. And you'll see that I have them all selected. You can do it from the perspective view, but sometimes you'll have the angle just slightly off and you might forget to click one, or you select a couple extras that you didn't mean to. So that's always, and you can always tell that from the positioning of your tool here, whether it's your move, rotate, or scale. If it's not perfectly centered, you're going to know that you've got, you'll see it's over here in your front viewport. You'll see that it's offset. Now if I highlight these, you'll know that I have just those selected. So that's a good sign to tell. Now with just those ones selected, hold shift, hold right click, merge vertices, and merge vertices. You can go to the tool. I had mine set to 0.1. Now if you change it here, and you see this little checkbox, always merge for 2 vertices. Let's change it to 0.1 and hit merge. And now you'll see that they're all merged, and the way you check that is tapping 3 on your keyboard, okay? And you'll notice I don't have any what I call pinching, and it points to where I need it to go. You'll see that it all becomes one fluid object, right? Now, the next part is going to be here. And I cover this little spot here in my box modeling technique. And I'm going to isolate this holding Shift-I, like I said before, if you're more comfortable shifting it over so you can see. But I'm going to tap Shift-I. Oh, wrong viewport. Shift-I. And actually, that's a good one. If I have this selected and I have my mouse hovering over on this viewport and I tap Shift-I, it does it in this one. So you have to deselect to bring it back and do it in the same viewport. So holding Shift-I, I isolate my model, and I just want to double check. I already deleted this cap. I don't want to have that cap in there. If I did, for instance, I'll show you what it'll look like, because I know some of you might do this because you might forget, so I like to cover it right now. Let's say I go into face, and here what I'm going to do really quickly and easily is I'm going to extrude these inward. We did this in the box modeling technique, and scale these a little bit in. Same exact thing that we did to create the blade up here in the box modeling video. Now, that being said, this is where things can get a little tricky. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this one, and I'm not going to delete these faces on purpose. I'm going to leave them there just to show you for a demo. Holding, I'm going to select one vertex, use my move tool. Holding V will snap to vertices. Holding X snaps to the grid. Remember, X snaps to the grid, V snaps to vertices. I can snap this to here. I can snap this one to here. And you'll notice it's a little up, and it starts to look really wonky. But, I'm just clicking and dragging from the center one, because I want it to be able to go on all axes, because I know these aren't perfectly lined up. And that's really the only way to kind of get these to go. Another quicker way So that's the long way. And then you would highlight those vertices and merge them together. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. So now, the one thing I want to show you, you see this, I'm inside of the hilt. And you'll see in here that I've got all these weird glitching, and that's because I have faces directly upon one another. So let me show you. If I delete these, I still have these, right? So I'm going to keep those here just for a demo. And now what I am going to do is I want to merge these so I can show you what it looks like. Whoops. And I have to combine the object. Bear with me for a second. I'm going to vertex. I'll make sure I just selected those ones. And I did. I can tell because I have my tool. I believe I did. Yep, I did. I have my tool. I believe I did. Yep. Control Z also can take you out of isolate mode. And I can merge these. Now, if my threshold is too large, you'll see it all snaps together. That's not something I want to do. That's not really at all what we're trying to accomplish here. So we're going to leave it at 1. And now we'll take a look. And when I put this into smooth mode, you're going to see some weird crimping. You can kind of tell. And once you delete these faces, you're going to see it doesn't do that weird crimping anymore. See that weird crimp, and you see the little glitch in there? You won't be able to see it in poly mode. You'll only really be able to tell it here, and delete those, and now you'll see that it's very, very, it has that smooth transition. Now, I know you probably got lost. I probably lost a lot of you on that. So we're going to go back to right about here. So instead of, that whole example is just to make sure if you see that happen, make sure you delete these faces here, because these 4 is going to be our little hole where we combine them and we don't get that weird crimping. We're going to delete the cap on that one as well. Now here, the easiest way to do it, if all that was confusing to you, select one vertice, select the other vertice, right? Hold shift, right click, merge vertices, merge to center. And I'm pressing G for last tool used. I know you're gonna say and think, but now my handle's all messed up, right? We're gonna fix that in a second. I feel like this is a pretty effective way, just doing one at a time on this part. And now, if I tap 3, what do we have here? I think one of my vertices isn't merged properly. Oh. So I just made a good mistake. What did I forget to do? I knew I made a mistake because I saw my crimping, right? I forgot to do one thing, and this is probably going to happen to a bunch of you as well. Selecting this and selecting this. Now, everything I just did didn't merge at all. That's why I'm getting that crimping. Everything I did didn't merge because I never combined my objects. And now I need to go in here. I'm using my vertice mode, highlighting just this line because I know these are just those verts I need. And I'm going to do it the fast way. And that's how I fix that very quickly. And you'll see it smoothly transitions into the top part of the blade. So, so now, anyway, now that I fixed that, there's real no easy way to explain this, but this is, like I said, medium. Now that I have it like this, I can merge or scale these in. Ooh! And I don't want to select those two. I just want to select the other ones. And now I can create that back to being somewhat normal. Also, you need to play around with it, whatever. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. But now you could scale that circular handle in at the top. The most accurate way to keep this, I'm just going to undo this a bunch of times. Unless you have a really good computer, or, you know, powerful enough computer, this could crash it. I know I had an old one where I could only undo so many times before, and if it doesn't crash, it might just stop because it set the undo threshold to a shorter because you have less RAM. Whatever, that's a totally different topic. So if you wanted to keep this, oh, I didn't go back. There we go. If you wanted to keep this all sort of perfect, I know some of you are perfectionists out there. The other thing you can do is, I'm going to highlight this edge. If you wanted to keep everything perfect, hold W or tap W, hold V, bring it down, right? And then on this part of the object, to keep this part perfectly cylindrical, like I was showing you one by one before, you can snap these one by one to each spot. And now I'm going to combine these objects, go to my vertex, and I'm going to accidentally select a couple of these outer ones as I did earlier. Go hold shift, right click, merge vertices, and you'll see it even merged these. So I need to make that threshold smaller. So if I hold, well, let's do Control Y, and you'll see now I get this weird sort of triangle here. And triangles are okay, but let's try to do it where I have all these selected, merge vertices, and I go to my little box here, and let's do 0.01 this time, because I have those right around here, right on top of each other, and this may not fall into that threshold because it's not too far, but let's find out. Let's hit merge, and now even though I had those highlighted, it didn't, because it didn't reach that threshold of distance, it didn't pick those up to combine and merge into these. So that's, I know, a little complicated, but that is the name of the game. Same exact thing here. We are going to do the same exact thing here. I hope this isn't too confusing. I know this is the hardest part of this entire lab, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes fairly simple. Select 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We are going to modeling toolkit. We are going to extrude, and we're going to scale these in. These we can bring in pretty close. Now, also going to delete these. Going to select my sword, isolate it, or you can move it over, and don't forget to delete these as well. Right. So now I've got both of my objects sort of hollowed out, if you will. And the easiest way to do this, if you combine them both, select one, shift select the other, combine them. If you select, click one vertice and shift select, and shift double click. So select one vertice, hold shift, double click, and then select one vertice and hold shift and double click. It'll select that entire edge loop, and we can do this much faster. Hold shift, right click, merge vertices, and I don't know if 0.1 is going to do it, so let's try 0.01. We're going to do just 0.1, hit merge, and that wasn't close enough. You see how the other outsides did, but the rest of them didn't? These might even be too far away, but let's try it again. Let's see if I can find just the right threshold. Merge vertices, 0.15, and it doesn't look like it's gonna work. You'll see it's getting some really strange results, so won't be able to do it that way. We will need to do these one at a time. So click one, click this one, hold shift, right click, merge to center. Click this, click that, G. Click this, click that, G. Click this, click that. All right, you see where I'm getting at? G. Click this, click that, G. Click this, click that, G. And that's merge to center I'm using, G, for last tool used. And now I've got my sword, and you can play around with, if you wanted it to look perfect, you could, select these, reposition them back into place so they're a little bit closer, move them in if you wanted, give it a little bit more rounder of a shape, and call it a day. But that's what we're going to be doing for creating a closed object. And tap 3 on your keyboard, and this is what it should look like. It should be all one smoothed shape. Everything should be smoothed into your model, right? Now we're going to cover, so we've covered the merge tool and the combine tool. We're now going to cover, and we covered a lot of different merge tools. We covered merge to center, merge verts, and then trying to merge a number of verts together, which we saw worked successfully in one way and unsuccessfully in another. So with that being said, that is the merge tools. So it's definitely a little difficult to wrap your brain around. This one's more technique heavy, but if someone like an employer, or you wanted to make a model for someone and they needed it to all be one solid object, this is how you would go about doing it. And that's the way that would work. Now, if they said they were fine with it being in multiple objects, it's a different story, but you definitely need to know how to do this 100%. So now I've got all these, this all is one object now, and you'll see it's called sword blade mesh. I can always rename it sword, just so we know. Merged, combined, sword combined mesh. So now you'll see that now I have all these sort of smooth transitions, but we don't want all smooth transitions because it's a sword, right? We want it to look different from one part to the other, because that's just the way it sort of is. The blade doesn't always come in from the hilt. They're typically separate parts and welded together or whatever they do. Now here, going to my edge mode, I can probably do this down here. I'm going to double click this edge loop. Just double click it and it'll select the whole thing. If you didn't combine those correctly, the vertices, this will not work properly. So it's another way to check to see if you did something properly. Now, with that being said, I'm going to show you the bevel tool. So holding shift and right click, the bevel tool is going to be right here, bevel edge. And I'm going to do I'll just see what it does by default. And you'll see it adds an extra loop in. Now, I don't want it to be sort of just doing what I already had it exactly doing. I'm going to try this fraction to 0.1, which worked, and you'll see it makes it much closer. So now I get a little bit tighter of a circle coming around here. And I'm going to change the segments to 2. And now this is actually a technique of what they call hard surface modeling. And now you'll see, and I'm not going to go much more than that. Now you'll see instead of having that smooth transition, I have that little pinch here to differentiate one part from the other. And you'll see I've got a couple extra edges in there much more quickly. Now, if the bevel tool isn't working for you for whatever reason, like I find this to be a spot where some students will struggle. If you do it right, it should work. And now you'll have it like that, right? But if not, I want to show you another way to do it. And I've already actually showed this to you, but if I select my multi-cut tool and I hold Control, I can kind of create my own little beveling trick here. And this is, again, like I said, a technique of hard surface modeling, right? So now from the handle, from the sphere and the handle, now instead of having that really smooth transition in, it's got a sort of more sharp and clean look to it. Same thing with the top of the blade. This one I'll just show you. I'll show you both techniques. I'll do the bevel. I'm going to change my fraction to 0.1 or maybe 0.2, whatever you feel looks right, and 2 segments. That's all you're going to need is 2 segments for this example anyway. But the harder or sharper you want it to look, you would just add additional bevels. Now you'll see that becomes a little bit sharper, right? Now the last thing I can do, I think this is all I require, but I'm going to show you this anyway, just to show you. I'm going to go around and select, and you're going to notice as I'm trying to select these entire edge loops, it's not going to work because of the way the sort of geometry is set up. And I think I selected all the ones that I wanted to. Oh. So now with all of those selected, holding shift, oops, right click and go to bevel edge. 0.1 and 2 segments, or let's make it 0.2 so we can all see it a little bit better. Tap 3 on my keyboard. Now I've got this sort of cool looking, in my smooth preview mode, hilt. And I could do the same thing on the edge of the blade too. Not going to. I think it's fine the way it is. I just wanted to show you some examples, but you'll see that now I've got this really clean looking sharp edge around everything in my smooth preview mode. And basically what smooth preview mode is, if I haven't already mentioned it, is a method of previewing what it would look like with the geometry subdivided, meaning what this would look like if you added 4 times the geometry, it would look like this. So if you remember that sphere I showed you, here's a good example. And I'm just going to duplicate that real quick. What it's doing, Of course, now I can't find it. All right, there we go. P-sphere 3. I was on the wrong one. P-sphere 3. So, in comparison, and display grid. Nope, not display grid. I want to display poly count. So we have this one, 382 verts. This one is down to 58. If I tap 3 on my keyboard, now I've got more of a smoothed out one, but it's literally what you'll see the numbers change. So with this being smooth at 8 and 8, it brings the verts up to, should be, let's bring it up quite a bit, but you'll see what I mean. I thought it was roughly 4 times. Apparently it's a lot more than that. Or it's the exponent of 4 maybe. I forget exactly what it is, but it's 962 now in its preview smooth mode. So that's what your computer is actually doing. It's actually showing you what it would look like. Now the edges is much less but anyway, it's basically using a little algorithm, if you will, to preview what it would look like with the geometry subdivided similar. I'm just going to use the word similar to this. But while you're working on your file, it's a lot easier to do it this way, to work with smaller poly count and then have it appear as if it has a higher poly count. It's less stress on the computer, 100%. But that's what it's actually doing. So I'm going to delete those, and that's what smooth mode is doing. I'm going to turn off, to finish this off, my wireframe on shaded. And I'm going to show you a couple things. You'll notice down here in my preview, you'll see that this thing has really weird octagonal, and it's smooth at the top, but it's just got some weird, I don't want to call it weird, it's displaying exactly how it's supposed to, but we can actually make this look smoother. Instead of doing that smooth preview every time, maybe you don't need to use it. If I select, you could probably do it face or edge. I'm just going to use the edge tool. Let's do it here. Make sure I'm selecting everything right. It looks like I did a pretty good job, but we'll go everything up to, you know what? We'll go everything up to the top here. So I selected all the edges of the sphere and the handle up to the very tippity top here, right? If I wanted to, I could select this. And I'm going to hold Shift and right click. Go to soften edge, or soften harden edge, and I'm going to go to soften edge. And now when I click off of this, you'll see it doesn't have those hard polygon looking shapes. It actually preview smooths it out for you. So that's kind of a cool little feature. And if I were to do harden edge, you're going to see that the whole thing looks like it's got a very hard, sharp edge. So just a quick little trick, and that's what it looks like in the smooth. Anyway, I'd like you to submit your file with the smooth mode on. Tap F on my keyboard. And so I can see, to make sure that you did this right, but I want you to submit actually the, I think I want you to submit the Maya file for this one, so I can go in and see where you've had any struggles with. The Maya file is definitely a better submission choice for this. So submit your Maya file. I don't need the image references as I already have them, but submit your Maya file, and that will be good for this week's submission. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. I know this was a little complicated, but with practice, everything is easier. So, and it's like riding a bike. You know, it's hard in the beginning, but gets easier and easier as you practice. So it's kind of like riding a bike, and then you can sort of do it with no hands, if you know what I mean. But other than that, if you have any questions, message me on Canvas. I look forward to any questions you have. If there's anything else I can help with, please let me know. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed this lab. I know it's a tricky one, but it's absolutely 110% necessary for me to teach you this style and technique. Other than that, take care. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.